Boom, there it is, ladies and gentlemen. All right, look, if you're in business, it's all about making sales. But what if you have a high ticket item and maybe you want to close sales when you're not at the office and you want to be out and about? If that's you, then this episode's one you're going to want to check out. Let's get this one started. Here we go.
Shut up and sit down.
Look, a business can give you everything you want in life: prestige, wealth, freedom. It can also take everything away from you. This show is for those who are willing to take that risk. These are the real life stories of entrepreneurs. But before we start, I have one small favor to ask. Please leave a comment. It can be advice, critiques, tips, feedback, or share this with someone, because your engagement is the most valuable and most powerful form of social currency. So thank you, and welcome to another episode of Business Bros. Are you an entrepreneur struggling to build a successful remote sales team? Do you find it challenging to increase your high-ticket sales while also achieving work-life balance? Well, our guest today is here to help you solve these pain points. Richard is an expert in unlocking the secrets to high-ticket sales, building successful remote sales teams, and finding freedom as a remote sales entrepreneur. So if you're ready to take your business to the next level, then stay tuned. Let's welcome to the show, Mr. Richard Lovatt. Richard, let's do this thing, man. Welcome to the show.
Bro, that intro is amazing. Thank you so much for having me on, bro. I appreciate it.
You literally came off doing another podcast. You're like 3 minutes, 2.5, not even 2 minutes into our show. What do you think so far?
Well, your show beats it in terms of your intro and the energy. Yeah, I'm absolutely loving it.
Perfect, man. Then let's get into some of this juicy stuff, right? Let's talk about unlocking the secrets to high ticket sales. First of all, walk us through your approach for selling high ticket packages. I mean, what's it like to go from, I don't know if you sold stuff at low ticket volumes, $7, $8, $10 stuff. And what is a high ticket item? What do you consider that to be?
Okay, well, I first went from, I owned a fitness agency and I used to sell my services online, $100 a month, that type of thing. I went from that to selling packages for $100,000, $150,000. So that's very high ticket, but normally high ticket is $5K and above,
Okay.
And so I come from a very different background compared to you. Most sales guys who are very boring. I come from an acting background. I've never read a sales book. I've never bought a sales course. And it was by accident that I kind of got into it because someone told me, hey, if you're a closer, you can make 10% on every deal you make. And I was like, what? So I joined an agency. I got put up, I got all these interviews. I got a few jobs. And before you know it, I was slamming down deals for 6 figures.
So let's kind of hover on that. An acting background, you still have to sell even as an actor, right? You got to show up to auditions. You got to sell yourself on the part. There's literally, I feel like people are salespeople all day long. They just don't kind of realize that they are doing that. Whether you have a spouse or you're trying to sell your kids on something, it's always sales. How did acting help in your high ticket sales career?
Well, it first started when I was a kid. I would never take no for an answer from my mum. I would just constantly, come on, and get the sale out of my mum, for sweets or whatever. But in acting, I'll be really honest, it's such a good crossover into sales, because if you can go to auditions, like hundreds and hundreds of auditions a year, and put yourself in a position where you have to learn a script very quickly, you have to put yourself in an uncomfortable position, you have to act out different stupid things in front of people. Once you get used to doing that, suddenly when you get on a sales call with just you and another person, honestly, it's a piece of cake at that point. In terms of communicating well, especially.
I like that because I think part of, and I'm writing it down, I always jot stuff down as I'm doing these things, but part of that sales process is understanding the script, right? And the cool thing about sales, it's not so rigid with the script as acting is. Acting, you pretty much stick to what is written. The writers are literally doing that for a reason. Every line has a reason in it. But in sales, I feel like you're given a script, you kind of internalize it and make it your own so that you can kind of get to the point and also give your client a kind of a general idea of where they are today, where they want to go, and how your product or service can help them get there. So the scripting is a little bit different, but I like how you put it together. You're like, yeah, man, look, I'm already used to showing up at auditions and them telling me no and having to go to the next one and having to adjust and make changes. Because at the end of the day, that's what sales is what it's all about, right? It's a numbers game. You're not going to get a yes every single time. So what do you feel are some common misconceptions that selling high ticket items might bring about, especially when you're talking to building a sales team, when you're trying to train other people about this type of thing? What kind of stigma does selling high ticket packages have, and how do you help people overcome those things?
One thing I get all of my guys to do, and I coach a team of maybe 8 to 10 high ticket closers, is everyone is concerned with the sales tactics and reading all the books and learning all the new ways of trying to get them to say yes. And if I listen to a lot of calls, and their tactics, you can tell, is they're trying to work out, how can I make this person say yes? How can I make them buy in? My tactics are completely opposite. I try and find all the ways why you shouldn't buy from me. And when you're buying something for 100K, 150K, and you get someone across from you saying, do you know what, John? I'm not sure this is the best thing for you. I mean, if you didn't do this, what would the worst that could happen? I mean, you're very successful as you are, John. So am I in the wrong ballpark here? And then they go, no, I do need it. They then sell to me. Do you know what I mean? And I do that frequently throughout the call by pushing them back, challenging their way of thinking, and they keep returning to me. And once they've returned enough times, I know I can then pitch, you know?
Yeah, I think most of us want to buy. We just don't want to be sold, right? That's really what it comes down to. There are things that we need in our life that we know we have to get. But if we're being sold on them, if we have that sleazy car salesman feeling around it, doesn't matter how much I need that thing, chances are that no is going to be a no, and not for your regular objection, just because I don't like you and I don't trust you, right?
It's awful when a salesperson is obviously being salesy. No one wants to buy, especially when you're eager as well. You know, sometimes I've seen salespeople, a prospect will say, yeah, we spend about $1 million on ads a month. And the salesperson says, oh my God, that's amazing. Like, so good. Well done, well done. The prospect doesn't want to hear that. The prospect wants to hear you say, yeah, understood. Yeah, see that. I see it all the time. You know, that's trustworthy. See it all the time, you know?
So let me help kind of clarify this. Your conversation is more almost avoidance, right? Like, look, man, I know I'm supposed to be selling you here, but really, let's figure out why you can't do this stuff with me. Look, I'm assuming you're starting with, like, you know, this may not be for you, but let me tell you what we got.
I never say this won't be for you, because I'm speaking to high level people here. So it's going to be for most people, right? But I'm going to challenge your way of thinking, and I'm going to show you reasons why you maybe shouldn't invest right now. And it works to a T. I'll tell you one little tactic I have that not lots of people do because they think it's too salesy. And I call it the yes or no frame. You know, and lots of people in sales will have heard of it, but I say it in such an empathetic way that it gets the point across. And what I say is, hey, John, so let me give you an understanding of how I structure these calls so you understand. All I'm going to do is run through some questions so I can figure out from the products we offer and possibly packages, what would make the most sense for you. If something does make sense, I'll present it to you on my screen. And then honestly, John, by the end of the call, all I'm looking for is a yes or a no. Is that fine with you?
Oh,
Right?
absolutely.
And subconsciously, they go, yes, right? Everyone says yes. It doesn't come across pushy. And what it does is it plays on their mind, because at the end of the call, I always have people saying, oh, I like it. You're looking for a yes or no, aren't you? And I was like, yeah, John, I am. I mean, the reason why I do this, by the way, John, is because I'm booked out 3 weeks in advance. I speak to 6 people a day. It makes no sense for me to look around for maybes. And they go, oh, it makes sense. And this kind of it's not pushy, but it's like I'm very serious with what I'm doing, and I'm not here to like go, oh, do you want to think about it? You know, that kind of way.
But that confidence has to be there because you're selling such high ticket items, right? I mean, the fact that you're like, look, I want to work with you, but only if you want to work with me. Let me show you what I got going on here and kind of lay that out. Look, I like parables and strategies and stuff like that, but if oftentimes if we can like put it in a story, I think that it kind of makes more sense. Can you kind of give me an example of like a success story you might have had, maybe selling one of those high ticket items?
There's hundreds of ones I can think of, but they're not necessarily special, so to speak. For all the people who have bought from me, with especially like the 50Ks up to 150K, they all just trust me. And it's not because I do anything magical. It's because within 2 minutes of the conversation, they know they're speaking to someone very competent. That's how I put it. Their perception has to be, they have to have such a perception in 2 minutes, or you've lost the sale. And so when this is what I teach people when they come onto call. I mean, normally I don't have this background on my wall, but I have a professional background. I come in sometimes a shirt, sometimes a tie. I speak eloquently and concisely. All of these things together are way more powerful than certain tactics. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, let's talk about the sales cycle, then the relationship. I'm imagining when you're talking to some of these clients and their high ticket items, it's not a quick 2 minute conversation. Boom, take my cash and let's get started. I'm imagining that there's some sort of building and establishing and maintaining of a relationship that has to go on in order for you to close some of these high level clients, and especially when you're doing it, I guess, in a remote sales sense. What are you doing to maintain these relationships, to kind of work through the progression to finally get them to close?
Well, the greatest thing, and if anyone's listening to this who wants to get into remote ticket sales, generally once my job is done, I've closed the deal, I do no more work. Okay, that's the greatest thing about earning in high ticket remote sales. I earn 10% on every deal I make, and then it goes to the onboarding team and they take care of it. Now, I do maintain relationships because if anything kind of messes up or there's obstacles in the road, guess what? They always come to me because they know they want my advice on things, and they reach out to me, which it's a very good thing. And I'm happy to be there and to help if I'm needed, you know?
So when you're working on these deals as a high ticket closer, I mean, that's great for after the fact. What about beforehand? I'm assuming there's some sort of nurturing campaign that kind of goes on here so that you can get them to closing. Afterwards, I get that. That totally makes sense. You're the one, you sold me this. You're the one who's going to get the phone call if anything goes wrong. But what about getting them to the closing line?
Okay, well, there's lots of things you can do. We have a very good pre-call strategy. We send a great VSL for people to watch, 10 minutes from the CEO. We send thoughtful messages where we've done research. We use ChatGPT. Generally, people have a pre-call as well, where they'll speak to someone from our company and they'll get kind of pre-qualified. By the time they come to me, they've had a touch point. They've got lots of information. They've been semi-warmed up. And I'm the second point of call. So generally, when someone is speaking to someone from your company for the second time, they're kind of ready to make a decision. Do you know what I mean? Whereas on the first call, it's very difficult to do 100K on a first call with you. Yeah.
Totally. And what about, do you guys work with like any part of your script, part of the like urgency to get things closed? I'd imagine that a high ticket item, there's less urgency, I guess, in price. I don't know. Like, I guess for me, having the stigma of selling something that's 50 to 100,000, the only thing I can think of that I would do anywhere near that price range, is usually more, would be in real estate. And I know to do that entire deal, there's a lot of back and forth to get them to finally move forward, whether they're going to sell or they're going to buy. So I'm kind of curious about your strategy to get them to move forward. Is it an urgency thing in your state, or is it hey, look, this is what you're trying to get to, these are the opportunities, it's the end of the month, you get a discount? Like what helps you get to that finish line?
I never, ever use urgency because in many ways it comes across salesy. You know, people use it in a fake way. I told them at the start of the call, I'm looking for a yes or a no, and both are fine. And I will actively look for a no. So by the time I pitch, I'm pitching on confidence that they've sold to me enough time to come back, that when I pitch, I'm pitching at the right time. I mean, would you ask a woman to marry you if you were 50-50?
Yeah.
Pretty sure you wouldn't. I don't pitch to someone unless I'm nearly 90% sure it's a good fit. And by that time, I pitch, and I know they're right on the edge. And if they need a nudge, I have solutions for them. I don't place random urgency. I'll say, John, I can tell you want some time to think. It's a big decision. Don't worry. I think what's best here is what we can do is I'll send you a contract. We'll do a refundable deposit of 5,000. I'll send you a contract. You'll have everything you need to make a final decision, and we'll speak again in 3 days' time. How's that sound? Right. And usually big business owners, when they really like what they see, they need a nudge. And now that's a perfect solution to a nudge where they don't feel they've 100% bought in, but they get a contract. They're essentially paying for a contract. I've had people say, wait a minute, you want me to pay before I see a contract? And I say, absolutely. I'm not going to allow you to take my contract and shop around with it to other companies. You're either slightly committed and we do this, or we say no, and that's fine. And I'm in the position of power here. It's you qualifying to me, not me trying to sell to you. And that's the distinguishing factor here.
Yeah, I guess you're in a unique situation because you're closing for existing companies, right? So it's different from the entrepreneur who's trying to first find the prospect, qualify the lead, then work through that lead and then get them to the closing table and then do the servicing. That's a whole different ball game. So the way you're doing things is really cool because it gives you a lot of flexibility. You're able to do things on your own schedule. I'm assuming you're making your own calendar. Tell me what it's like in the everyday life for Richard. Like what's your schedule like? What's your life like for being able to run a company like this or to being able to run a sales team like this?
So it is fairly flexible. I mean, if you're working at a very high level in what I do, it's a lot of work. Do not get me wrong. I work long hours. But to give you an understanding, since February, I've been traveling the world. I've been in India many times. I've been in Barbados. I've been in Spain. I've been in France. And that's because I can work from anywhere, right? If I had to pick, I would rather stay in one position and be able to work hard because traveling so much actually makes it very difficult to have a routine. But if remote sales is very good for people, nomads, who want to go and live in Thailand and be able to do sales calls from there. It's absolutely perfect for that.
What about finding companies like that? So rather than maybe starting your own company, because it takes a lot, like we were kind of describing earlier, trying to find the sales, trying to do all the servicing, and all that stuff. What if I just wanted to do sales like you're doing right now? What's that process like? What can one expect to get into this sales game?
Well, I'm going to do the plug here, and obviously my website is at the bottom. But like I just released this Discord group, and my aim of it is actually to make it easy to understand how I do things and to be able to get a job from it. So I've got a course there. It's literally $50 a month. It's ridiculous because people sell this stuff for $6,000. And it's just to tell people, okay, this is what I do. This is how I do it. Understand it. And then I'm posting job opportunities in there because I get people speaking to me all the time is where they need salespeople. So I'm going to start using my group to offer jobs, So I would say that's the best way in terms of what I do. But there are lots of agencies out there who hire remote closers.
And what are we going to learn if we go there? If we go and kind of dabble in this package, we're like, okay, look, $50 a month, I can do that. That's opening the doorway for me to be able to earn high-end commissions here. What can somebody expect to do when they go there?
Well, it's really simple. I've written out a long course, many chapters. I mean, it's not boring stuff. It's very high-level stuff. I've got people in there, beginners who haven't been in sales at all. I've got lots of people who follow me on Twitter is where I usually am. I've got people in the group who are pros, who have been in the game a long time and still learn from me. And I think it's about just first, you have to get your head around the whole remote closing world. How does it work? How can you be successful at it? If someone came into my group and then they got hired by an 8-figure agency like the one I work at, you don't get long. You have to perform within 2 weeks or you're gone. it's very high commission, very paid very well. If you don't perform though, you're gone. And so what I try and teach is how you can actually get into one of those roles and perform from day one.
Because at the end of the day, we're looking for results, right? Results are the reason why these companies are keeping you around. So I'm assuming these companies already have their lead generation in play, and you're kind of handling that lead gen that comes in. What are some of those secrets or strategies that you have to kind of stay motivated and kind of keep going for those people who are just getting started? Because they might not be able to deal with rejection or staying motivated to make the number of calls or stay on the number of appointments. So what kind of advice would you give somebody who's getting started and maybe lands one of those jobs?
Okay, firstly, I'm not going to try and convince anyone to do it, because if you can't deal with rejection, sales is not for you. 100%. You have to just be ready to come in and get your ass kicked pretty much day one, and I see that a lot. Maybe I'm on a different level because of my acting, but I see it all as an act. I kind of like that interaction. It gives me so much energy. And I'm not even bothered. If it's a no, I've never cared. And I think that comes across because people realize I don't care and I'm just having a conversation. But people do find it hard. If there's pressure on you, you have to close a certain amount of people or you're off the team. That pressure is very hard to take. So you've got to try and take your brain out, you take your mind outside of the outcome and just do the job in front of you. That's how I explain it.
When you're doing your job in preparation for talking to some of these clients, are you researching their companies or anything like that ahead of time? Or is your company providing you with everything you need in order to have these conversations?
Yeah, so both, to be honest. People will usually fill in a form. They'll see an ad, they'll fill in a form. So I'll get quite a lot of information from that. But I'll obviously go out of my way. I'll look at their website, look at their LinkedIn. I will think of something and bring up something clever to mention to them, so that they see I've always actually gone out and he's done some reading. One thing I'll actually do is I'll try and bring up a negative from what I see and hit them with it, but empathetically. So I'll say, like today, I said, "Hey, John, I love your website, love what you're doing. And I hope you don't take offense by this, John, but I think your Instagram, there's lots of work that you need to be doing there." And I say it in such a way where they can't be offended, but it's always good because they kind of go, "Oh, okay, this guy right from the start is telling me what I need to go and do and improve." And it sets the tone for the rest of the call that, I'm the expert here and I'm advising,
What are you expecting to happen as you go from podcast to podcast and you're kind of sharing this message of, look, let me show you how to do this remote sales job. What's the goal behind it? What's your overall play here? Where are you at today? Where do you want to be?
Well, actually, it's a really good question. I think what I want to do is show people out there, because like nowadays, the financial markets, the economic crisis, it's tough. Everyone's finding it tough. Sales is kind of the key to freedom. If you get there and be successful, you can, I know people making 100K plus a month more, younger than me. They're 21 years old and they're doing it. It's amazing. And so I just think if you even get to a certain point in sales, you can make 5 to 10K very, very easily a month. And stop worrying about rent and your mortgage and looking after your parents, and all these things are gone. And that's what I found from it. And my goal actually is to allow my circle and people who follow me to experience that as well.
It's funny that you say that, because when we think of that 100,000 a month, making 1.2 million a year, it sounds amazing. But most people, if they could make an extra $500,000 a month, that is life changing for a lot of them. Car payment, rent already taken care of. Those are big changes. And you said it's kind of easy to do. What I guess my question is, what can I sell if I'm getting started? What can I go into? Where can I look to sell some of this stuff so that I can find that kind of revenue? And is there anything that is recurring type commission versus just straight flat commission?
Yeah, so what I sell is PR. I work for a PR company. We sell a recurring monthly. So as soon as I close someone, they're generally paying 10 to 20K a month, and I'm making 10% every month from it. So as you close more and more people, I've got more and more people paying me every month. There's different ways of doing it. I wouldn't say try and sell something. Don't you sell something. You want to work for a company where you sell their products. It's already made. It's already going to be done for you. You just come in and you be the middleman. Now, obviously, you have to have training. So I would advise going out there, making sure you understand things before you apply to any of these jobs, else you're going to look stupid,
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, for $50 a month with my course, I will teach you exactly how it works. And so that if you do apply to any of the jobs in my group or further afield, because there's many out there, you'll at least be in a very good position to understand how it works.
What kind of when you're getting people to come on to your program, what are the qualifications that they need to see in themselves in order for this to be successful for them? Obviously, we said you got to be able to deal with rejection, but what are some other things that if I am thinking about getting into sales and I need to learn some stuff, what should I be thinking of in order to get started in this space?
Just that if you want to be successful, like with anything in life, with any endeavor, you have to work very hard. You can't just come in, pay $50, read it and think, okay, now where's the 10K? There's hundreds and thousands of people trying to do the same thing as you. So what I'm trying to show people is, okay, if there's thousands and thousands of people trying to do what you do, how can you already be on a level above them? Okay, learn how I do things, learn my methods. I promise you, once you get into a role, you already be above everyone else. And I know this for a fact because on my sales team, we recently brought on 4 new people who have no experience doing this, by the way. I had to put in brand new systems within the company to accommodate them. And guess what? They all started closing deals in their first week, all of them with no experience. So what I realized is actually my methods I could put to the test. They would all just follow my script and just do what I said. And they all became successful. So this is why I kind of released my course. I was like, I need to teach more people this.
Man, it sounds so simple, and yet people still struggle with sales. Like it's for you, you're making it sound like if, let me show up, follow my steps. This is the stairway to success. Step number 1, step number 2, step number 3. Why aren't more people doing it?
Well, it's a really good question because I didn't even realize people were doing it until, I'm 32. I didn't realize people were doing it until a few years ago. I wish I'd found it at 18. I'm telling you now, I would be multi-millionaire easily. I think it just comes around and maybe you only just become aware of it. But if anyone's listening, just know it's out there. There's a company I'd like to suggest, and I'm not even affiliated with them, but they're called tryclosify.com, I believe. It's an agency for salespeople. So you can join up as a salesperson and then you can apply for all these jobs and get interviews. So at least it kind of gives you that gateway to interview for all these jobs.
That's a good stepping stone. That's huge actually, to be able to at least get an interview, because I think a lot of companies, I don't know. A lot of companies are looking for salespeople. They're just looking for good salespeople. And I think the turnover in salespeople is really, really high. They drop off for a number of different reasons. And I think, like you said earlier, it's just sales wasn't their thing. And yet it's the lifeblood pretty much of any business. As a sales coach, and teaching people on this sales stuff, what should if I'm looking for a sales coach, if I'm looking to train on these types of things, what are some things that I should kind of steer away from if I see other people who are quote unquote coaches or selling courses when it comes to sales?
Honestly, I don't know because I don't look out there and I don't know. I know of some names, some well-known names like Alex Hormozy, Cole Gordon. I believe the great people to listen to. Very, very successful guys, like way more successful than me. But I don't know really what they teach. Do you know what I mean? So I can never recommend them or not recommend them. But one thing I just want to highlight is I'm very active on Twitter. My company needed 5 roles in sales within the company. I just wrote on Twitter. I put it in my group and we hired 5 people from my group, and they're on my team and they're working with me. And so as my company, who I work with, High Key Agency, as we grow and grow, I'll just be hiring people from within my group. So essentially, that's the best way.
That's
Other
an
than
additional perk. Yeah, that's an additional perk right there. All right, Richard. Well, we're coming close to our time marker here. I want to make sure you get another plug in, as well as any final thoughts.
Honestly, I don't have any more plugs. I feel like I did enough there. But generally, my goal is to help people out there earn money from high ticket sales and kind of look after their family and not care about things like rent and mortgage and car payments.
And that's it. That's what we got. Ladies and gentlemen, high ticket sales. It's the way to go if you're looking for high-end commissions, especially when you're looking for recurring ones like Richard was talking about with this PR agency that he's working with. So if you're looking for an opportunity that might be a little bit different, that gives you the flexibility to live abroad if you want to travel, to earn some of that freedom, then I suggest you find a mentor. And Richard's sitting here being a mentor, showing you a path of success that has already happened. Here are the steps: step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. And then best of all, when the opportunities open up, he's going to connect you with job openings. So make sure you guys go to his website. Scrolling across the bottom is closeandpaid.card.co, and that's 2 R's in card. It's scrolling across the bottom. You can follow him on social as well at Close and Paid. And like I said, reach out, ladies and gents. If you're looking for a different opportunity, sales, again, has no limit to how high you can take this thing. So Richard, thank you very much for being on the program. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace. And we're out.
It's over. Go home.
Is your business in need of marketing? Try starting a podcast, but not just any podcast. Podcast like a pro. We can show you how to take your business from being invisible to becoming a brand people trust. Go to www